The scholarship student my mother sponsored was utterly subservient to me at school, but behind my back, he was secretly impersonating me, running risque live streams online. Later, after I was humiliated by one of his female fans, he publicly accused me of rape, using my name and identity. He built his fame and fortune by feasting on my public downfall, painting himself as a righteous victim exposing a predator. Accused of moral corruption and abandoned by my family, I was cast out. That winter, alone and destitute, I froze to death on a park bench. Reborn, I found myself back before the worst happened. And just like before, Daniel continued his suggestive broadcasts from the supposed privacy of his small room. He had no idea that the tiny camera I'd installed weeks ago was already recording his every move. It had to be Ethan. He definitely took it. Yeah, he's the only broke kid in the whole class. Who else could it be? He's never seen anything nice in his life, the penniless loser. Search his locker, bet he stuffed it in there. The dorm room door burst open, and a noisy mob flooded in while I was trying to study. Before I could even react, the book in my hands was violently slapped to the floor. The air crackled with hostility. I was instantly surrounded, their faces a mixture of mockery and undisguised contempt. Through the wall of bodies, I saw Daniel pushing forward, his expression etched with faux concern. "Hey, don't talk like that," he pleaded, his voice trembling slightly. "Ethan's not that kind of person." He wrung his hands, looking genuinely distressed. Sure, he likes wearing some inspired designer stuff sometimes, but it's just for fun. He'd never do something as vain and desperate as stealing just to show off. His words, meant to sound like a defense, only poured fuel on the fire. A guy next to him sneered, his lip curling. "Oh, so, no money but loves flashing fakes? Sounds pretty greedy to me." Laughter erupted around the room. I scanned the hostile faces closing in, saying nothing, my expression carefully neutral. A cold calm settled over me, masking the storm within. This was 3 months before my death in the previous timeline. Kyle had lost a watch, an Omega, and it was later discovered in my locker. Back then, I was trapped, unable to prove my innocence. I'd wanted to call the police, but Daniel, ever the helpful friend, had persuaded me against it. He'd warned that if I couldn't clear my name definitively, the accusation alone could jeopardize my application to study abroad. He then made a show of running around, begging Kyle, pleading with the teachers on my behalf. The whole incident was eventually swept under the rug, a confusing mess left unresolved. At the time, I'd been overwhelmingly grateful to him, completely blind to how his help had subtly cemented the image of me as a materialistic, wannabe rich kid in everyone's eyes. An image that perfectly set the stage for the later scandal. When the rape accusations hit, many of those same classmates eagerly jumped online, adding their voices to the chorus condemning me, pushing me further into the abyss. And now, here it was again. The scene replaying, almost verbatim. Daniel, looking frantic, his voice cracking as if on the verge of tears. "Please, stop picking on Ethan," he choked out. He struggles with depression, you know? What if this triggers an episode?" Someone scoffed loudly. "Depression? Bullshit. He just plays the victim card with you, Daniel." "Yeah, Daniel, you're too nice." Another voice chimed in, dripping with false sympathy aimed at Daniel but scorned at me. "I've seen guys like him before. They act pathetic, hoping to latch onto someone generous like you. Freaking leech, got no shame." The circle tightened, pressing in on me. Kyle, the owner of the missing watch, stood at the forefront, his expression a mask of pure contemptuous derision. A cold smirk touched my lips. I'd been waiting for this day since the moment I opened my eyes in this second chance. Now, it was Daniel's turn to taste the suffocating helplessness of being falsely accused, unable to defend himself. Seeing my smirk, Kyle bristled. He stepped forward, planting a dirty shoe on my bedspread and spitting near my pillow. "What the hell are you smiling at, asshole?" I met his glare, my voice unhurried, almost casual. "Your watch is missing? The Omega, right?" Kyle raised an eyebrow, his sneer deepening. "Oh, look who knows Omega. Guess you've worn plenty of knockoffs in your time, huh?" He never missed a chance to paint me as fake and grasping, desperate to imply my supposed envy of real wealth. I ignored his jibe. Slowly, deliberately, I reached down and unclasped the watch on my own wrist. I let it drop onto the desk with a quiet, heavy thud. The intricate face and gleaming platinum caught the light. "Patek Philippe," I stated clearly, my voice cutting through the murmurs. "Retail price, around $250,000. I watched Kyle's eyes widen slightly, his brow furrowing in confusion. Then, I let the coldness seep back into my voice. "Do you really think I'd be desperate enough to steal your $10,000 trinket? In my past life, my family's wealth had made me a target. I was severely bullied throughout my childhood. Back then, My father was always overseas, consumed by his international business dealings. My mother? Her world revolved around shopping sprees and spa days. My daily struggles were beneath her notice. For nearly a decade, I was extorted by classmates. Coming home with bruises was routine. I tried telling my mother, begging her to hire bodyguards, but she'd always brush me off with impatience, her voice sharp. I have enough on my plate already. Can you please stop bothering me with this nonsense? Or worse, there are plenty of rich kids in the world. Why do they pick on you? You must be flaunting things at school, provoking them. They're just messing around. Being cornered and beaten bloody in the school bathroom became messing around in her dismissive narrative. The chasm between my reality and her perception was vast and isolating. It wasn't until I was beaten so badly I suffered a mild concussion and ended up hospitalized that my father finally flew back from abroad. Realizing the severity, my mother scrambled to defend her inaction. I asked the school. They said those boys were just playing rough with Ethan. You know how kids are, they don't know their own strength. My father's voice was thunderous. Playing rough caused this? Maybe I should hire some people to play rough with you and see how you like it. Only then did she fall silent, a flicker of guilt, or perhaps just fear, crossing her features. After that, they transferred me to an elite private school. That's when Daniel entered our lives. He was the poor student my mother sponsored, excellent grades, impeccable manners. Learning about my lingering depression and social anxiety, he seemed exceptionally caring, always looking out for me. My mother somehow arranged for Daniel to transfer to my prestigious school. My father disapproved, wary of the situation, but swayed by my own naive insistence. I desperately wanted a friend, someone who understood. He eventually relented. Because of the past trauma, I was terrified of drawing attention to my wealth at the new school. Daniel, ever so thoughtfully, proposed a solution. He would act as my aid. Anything expensive, any privilege I enjoyed, could be attributed to him. He would be the visible, rich kid, while I could remain in the shadows. Lost and trusting, I agreed. Whenever trouble arose, Daniel was always the first to speak up for me, to deflect blame, to protect me. His constant defense earned my deep gratitude. I was utterly oblivious to his subtle, insidious campaign. He was carefully crafting an image of me as his dependent, a moocher living off his generosity, while he shone as the capable, wealthy heir. The contrast couldn't have been starker. Later, the betrayal escalated. He secretly used my stolen ID to run those risque live streams on international platforms, pocketing huge sums in donations. But it didn't stop there. He used my name, my identity, to lure a female fan to a hotel room. That fateful night, I drank a beverage Daniel handed me. The world went black. When I woke up hours later, disoriented and confused, the damage was done. The woman was in my bed. Daniel had already arranged everything. Reporters were waiting outside the hotel door. The woman went online immediately, weaving a tearful story of how I, the supposed wealthy heir, had assaulted her. Overnight, headlines screamed, "Son of international tycoon accused of rape." My desperate pleas of being the victim, of being drugged and set up, fell on deaf ears. Instead, I was met with a tidal wave of online mockery and disbelief. Raped by a woman? Come on, dude. You can lie to us, but don't lie to yourself. A 6-foot-tall guy forced by a woman? These rich kids will say anything to get off the hook. Right. You were tricked into going to the hotel, tricked into taking off your pants, tricked into having sex. You're the picture of innocence, aren't you? Then came the final blow. The existence of the risque live streams, performed under my identity, was leaked. Using the account information, online sleuths quickly traced it back to me. That sealed it. In the public eye, it confirmed my depravity. After all, why would the son of a wealthy family secretly engage in such behavior online unless he had some perverse kink? My face was photoshopped onto countless degrading memes, spreading like wildfire across the internet. My reputation was irrevocably destroyed. My father, refusing to believe I could do such things, launched his own investigation, desperately searching for evidence to clear my name. But before he could uncover the truth, he died suddenly, inexplicably, from a massive heart attack. With his death, all the company's shares fell into my mother's hands. The very day she officially took control of the corporation, she held a press conference and publicly disowned me, severing all ties. The move garnered widespread praise for her decisiveness and moral fortitude. Then, in the depths of winter, she threw me out of the house with nothing but the thin clothes on my back. Branded by the scandal, no one would hire me, not even for menial labor. No shelter would take me in. Ultimately, shivering and alone on a frozen park bench, I succumbed to the biting cold of that long, dark night. It was only after death, as my detached soul drifted back to the house, that I learned the final, horrifying truths. My mother, Sylvia, had systematically swapped my father's heart medication, engineering his fatal attack. And Daniel? He was far more than just a scholarship student she'd taken pity on. After I dropped the Patek Philippe on the desk, revealing its value, the initial stunned silence was broken by raucous laughter. Kyle guffawed, slapping his thigh. $250,000? In your dreams, Ethan. Everyone knows you're the poorest schmuck in this entire school. If you're gonna buy fakes, at least pick something believable for someone like you. Without flinching, I pulled the official certificate of authenticity from my bag and slapped it down on the desk next to the watch. See for yourself if it's real or fake. Kyle snatched the certificate, his laughter dying as he scanned the document. He fell silent, his face darkening. Someone nearby piped up, unwilling to let it go. Don't listen to him. The certificate's probably fake too. Kyle's expression turned grim. After a long moment, he muttered grudgingly, "It's real." The heckler shut up instantly. An awkward, heavy silence descended upon the room. Seeing the tide turning, Daniel immediately jumped in, playing the peacemaker. "Of course, it's real," he announced brightly. "I bought that watch for Ethan last month when we went shopping together." A collective wave of understanding washed over the onlookers. Murmurs filled the air. "Ah, no wonder he has a watch like that. Daniel bought it for him." Figures. Only Daniel would be that generous to Ethan. Daniel clapped me on the shoulder, offering a reassuring, almost paternal smile. In my past life, that gesture would have filled me with pathetic gratitude. Now, seeing his face so close, feeling his hand on me, I just felt a wave of nausea. I pulled out my phone, navigated to my banking app, and held up the screen displaying the transaction record. My voice was dangerously smooth, laced with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Here's my payment record for the watch. You said you bought it, Daniel? Show me yours." Daniel froze, clearly blindsided by my direct challenge. He forced a strained laugh. "Ethan, what are you talking about? You remember what we agreed, right? We don't broadcast these things." "Oh, but you love playing the generous benefactor, don't you?" I pressed, tilting my head. "Go on, show the payment record. Wouldn't want people thinking I'm freeloading off you." I paused, letting the implication hang in the air before adding with a mocking half-smile. "After all, I am the heir to Lin Corporation. Imagine how embarrassing it would be if rumors like that reached my father." "Wait, you're the Lin heir?" A confused voice piped up from the crowd. I thought Daniel was the Lin heir. Eyes darted between me and Daniel, confusion mounting. Someone else urged, "Yeah, Daniel, show him the record. Shut this loser up before he spreads more lies about you." Daniel's face flushed crimson. He glared at me, his jaw tight. "Ethan," he ground out, "we're talking about you stealing the watch right now. Stop trying to change the subject." Kyle quickly jumped in, eager to get back on script. "Yeah, open your damn locker, Ethan. Stop trying to distract everyone." He shot Daniel a look, a smug, confident expression back on his face, clearly thinking they still had the upper hand. "Fine, I'll open my locker," I said, scanning the faces around me, my smile widening slightly. "But searching only me seems a bit unfair, don't you think? Since something's missing, shouldn't we check everyone's locker in the room?" "Whatever," Kyle sneered, likely assuming I was bluffing, stalling for time. He agreed readily. 3 minutes later, every locker in the dorm room stood open. Kyle made a beeline for mine, eagerly rummaging through my belongings. He found nothing. Just textbooks, toiletries, everyday items. No expensive watch. A flicker of confusion crossed Daniel's face, but it vanished quickly, replaced by dawning horror. Because as Kyle, frustrated, moved on to Daniel's locker and impatiently shoved aside a pile of clothes. There it lay, the missing Omega watch, nestled amongst Daniel's belongings. I let out a gasp, widening my eyes in feigned shock. "Daniel, so you were the thief all along?" Panic flared in Daniel's eyes. "No, impossible," he stammered, his voice rising. "It can't be in my locker. You framed me. You planted it there." "Funny, isn't it?" I retorted, my voice dripping with mock innocence. "When it's supposedly in my locker, I'm automatically a thief. When it's found in yours, I must have framed you. Try not to be such a hypocrite, Daniel." Kyle looked utterly baffled. He knew he'd arranged for someone to plant the watch in my locker. How had it ended up here? He didn't know, of course, that I'd carefully swapped the name cards on our lockers earlier that day. The person Kyle had sent, unfamiliar with the room layout, had simply put the watch in the locker labeled Ethan Lin, which, at the time, was Daniel's. I'd only switched the name cards back to their correct places 5 minutes before this mob arrived. But caught in the moment, all Kyle could do was bluster. There must be some misunderstanding. Daniel would never steal my watch. I wasn't waiting for them to regroup. While they were still processing the shock, I bolted out of the room and down the stairs, fetching the campus security guard posted at the dorm entrance. Now, with security present and the evidence found red-handed in his locker, real fear finally dawned on Daniel's face. Because of the theft accusation, my mother, Sylvia, was summoned to the school. The moment she swept into the principal's office, her voice was sharp and unwavering. Our Daniel would never steal anything. Seeing her fierce defense of him, a ghost of my past self surfaced. I remembered vividly how, in the previous timeline when the watch was found in my locker, she had arrived, slapped me across the face without a word, and then dragged me to apologize profusely to Kyle. It was Daniel's intervention back then that made the issue quietly disappear, but not before cementing my reputation as a thief in everyone's mind. After that, my name was mud at school, and Daniel became my only friend. Now, watching the scene replay with the roles reversed, seeing her shield Daniel with such conviction, a pang of sorrow for the boy I used to be resonated within me. But it was fleeting. Despite her adamant defense, the fact remained. The watch was found in Daniel's locker. Faced with her aggressive stance, the school administration seemed hesitant, unsure how to proceed. Just as the tension reached a stalemate, Kyle suddenly burst into the office, looking flustered. "Wait, I just remembered," he exclaimed, a little too loudly. "I actually asked Daniel to hold on to the watch for me earlier. I completely forgot." It was a painfully obvious lie, but it provided a convenient escape route for everyone involved. With the victim retracting the accusation, the school officials breathed a visible sigh of relief. They issued stern verbal warnings to both Daniel and Kyle about responsibility and carelessness, then dismissed them. As we left, my mother noticed Daniel looked downcast. She immediately fussed over him, whispering words of comfort for several minutes. Then, without giving me so much as a glance, she turned and swept away. In the past, her blatant disregard would have wounded me deeply. But having lived and died once already, I finally understood the profound foolishness of investing any emotion in someone who clearly didn't love me. However, this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. That evening, I logged onto the anonymous campus forum. I carefully typed out an account of the entire incident, heavily emphasizing that the missing watch had been discovered in Daniel's locker. Then, I added a suggestive twist. I hinted that after Daniel's parents arrived, the issue was mysteriously dropped, implying some kind of shady deal or cover-up had taken place. He loved pretending to be the wealthy heir, didn't he? Fine. I'd help him solidify that image, just not in the way he expected. Predictably, the replies poured in, following the exact trajectory I'd anticipated. People questioned why someone supposedly as rich as Daniel would need to steal a watch. Was it kleptomania? A secret thrill? Others speculated wildly about what favors or money Daniel might have offered Kyle to make him suddenly change his story. The speculation grew wilder, with some commenters outright calling Kyle Daniel's pathetic lackey, easily bought off. As the discussion spiraled, hitting closer and closer to home, Kyle's notoriously short fuse finally blew. He and Daniel had been partners in crime, setting me up together. Now, seeing himself publicly labeled as Daniel's subservient dog, Kyle snapped. He spent the entire afternoon furiously flaming Daniel on the forum, tearing into him, mocking his inability to produce the payment record for the expensive Patek Philippe watch Ethan supposedly owned, and casting doubt on his entire claim of being the Lin Corporation heir. This topic was far juicier than a simple theft accusation. Instantly, the forum exploded. The debate about whether Daniel was genuinely wealthy or just a massive fraud became the hottest topic on campus, overshadowing everything else. When we got home that evening, Daniel, face contorted with rage, stormed straight into his room. Through the hidden camera feed on my laptop, I watched him completely lose control. He smashed objects, hurled books against the wall, his eyes bloodshot, the usual mask of gentle subservience utterly shattered. He was clearly pushed to his limit. My mother happened to pass by his room, heard the crashing sounds, and immediately rushed in. Seeing the mess in Daniel's state, tears welled up in her eyes, her face crumpling with exaggerated pity. When Daniel choked out the story about the campus forum, her sympathy instantly morphed into fury directed elsewhere. "Which rotten bastard started those rumors?" she shrieked. "It must be Ethan. He's always been malicious." Without a second thought, she pulled Daniel into a comforting embrace, murmuring soothing words. Watching the scene unfold on my monitor, I couldn't help but find it darkly comical. The next morning, when Daniel approached me, his rage from the night before completely vanished, replaced by a disturbingly cheerful, almost saccharine smile. I knew instantly. He was plotting something new. For the next few days, Daniel acted as if nothing had happened. He went to school, maintained his usual polite and attentive demeanor towards me, sometimes even humming cheerfully under his breath. After about 2 weeks, the furor on the campus forum gradually died down. Life seemed to return to a semblance of normalcy. Except, Daniel continued his nightly ritual, retreating to his room immediately after dinner and not emerging until the next morning. He remained blissfully unaware of the tiny electronic eye capturing his every secret activity. Around 11 each night, the show would begin. He'd dim the main bedroom lights, switching on pulsing pink and purple mood lamps. Then, positioning his webcam carefully, he'd start his live stream. He never showed his face. The camera angle was fixed, focusing on the area from his neck down to his knees. He'd flex his abs, arch his back, suggestively, preening for the anonymous online audience. And there, starkly visible on his lower waist, were 2 small, distinct red moles. My moles. The ones I'd had since birth, in that exact same position. Now, impossibly, they were displayed on this stranger's body on the screen. I opened a separate browser window and navigated to his streaming platform, joining the audience anonymously. Daniel swayed rhythmically, his movements becoming more provocative. Slowly, deliberately, he began to slide his pants down. The viewer count in the chat spiked instantly, comments flooding the screen. He finally ended the stream around 2 in the morning. But tonight, something different happened. As he reached to turn off his computer, likely forgetting the camera was still live for a split second, his face flashed across the screen. Except, the face wasn't Daniel's. It was mine. He was using sophisticated AI face-swapping technology. This accidental slip-up, this brief glimpse of my face, was precisely what he intended. It was the breadcrumb trail designed to lead online investigators directly to me, Ethan Lin, when the time was right. I had waited nearly half a month for this exact moment. Calmly, I stopped the screen recording software on my computer, saved the video file securely, and shut everything down. The next morning, armed with the video evidence, I walked into the local police station. "So, you're saying this individual is using your likeness without permission?" the detective asked, peering at the video clip I'd provided. I nodded, my voice steady. "Yes, I stumbled upon this live stream by accident. I can assure you, I have never broadcast on this platform or any platform like it. And furthermore," I lifted the hem of my shirt slightly, pointing to my own waist, then gesturing towards the figure in the video. "You see these 2 moles here? They are identical to mine, in the exact same location. I have strong reason to suspect this person is deliberately impersonating me online." The detective looked intrigued, perhaps encountering such a bizarre case for the first time. He studied the video intently for a moment before looking back at me. "Your suspicion seems reasonable, but why would someone impersonate you specifically?" I pulled out my ID, laying it on the desk. "My name is Ethan Lin. My father is Harrison Lin, the chairman of Lin Corporation." I met the detective's eyes directly. "I suspect this impersonation is for illicit financial gain, and possibly to damage my reputation, and by extension, my family's. This concerns not only my personal honor, but also the integrity of Lin Corporation. I sincerely hope you can investigate this matter thoroughly, officer." After verifying my identity, the case was officially opened. At my explicit and repeated request, the police agreed to conduct the investigation discreetly for the time being. Daniel, cleverly, was using a VPN and virtual IP addresses for his broadcasts to mask his location. Perfect. Exposing him prematurely would spoil the game. Let him think he was safe. Let him continue weaving his web. Not long after, the school announced a major fundraising assembly. It was framed as an informational session, but everyone knew the real purpose: soliciting donations from wealthy parents for a new campus building. My mother, Sylvia, arrived representing Lin Corporation. When she saw me sitting a few rows back, a flicker of undisguised disgust crossed her face before she addressed me, her voice like ice. "When will you ever learn to be sensible, Ethan? Look at Daniel's outstanding grades, then look at yours. You're an embarrassment." Without waiting for a response, she turned her back on me and walked gracefully to the front row, taking a seat right next to Daniel. In my previous life, she always used occasions like this to publicly distance herself from me, using my perceived failures as justification. Over time, her constant criticism had chipped away at my self-worth, making me doubt myself. But now, it didn't matter. Hearing her familiar, cutting words stirred nothing within me. No pain, no anger, just a vast, empty indifference. After the principal delivered his impassioned speech about the school's future, the auditorium filled with polite applause. As the representative of a major potential donor, my mother was naturally seated prominently. When the principal offered her the microphone, she rose elegantly, surveyed the audience with a practiced smile, and began. "I've heard some unfortunate rumors circulating recently," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the speakers. "Rumors questioning whether Daniel is truly my son." A hush fell over the crowd. The previously dormant gossip was suddenly thrust back into the spotlight. Faces turned, alight with the anticipation of drama. "Let me be unequivocally clear," she continued, her smile tightening slightly. "Daniel is my only son. I will not tolerate any doubts cast upon this matter. As for certain individuals who might wish to attach themselves to our family's status," she paused, letting her gaze sweep vaguely in my direction. "Well, vanity is common at this age. It's understandable. But to harm a bright, diligent, and kind-hearted student like Daniel out of sheer envy? Isn't that going too far?" She didn't name me, but every eye in the room subtly shifted towards me, the implication hanging heavy in the air. "Today," she declared, raising her voice slightly, radiating magnanimity, "on behalf of Lin Corporation, I pledge to donate funds for an entire new building for this wonderful school. I hope this clarifies things and reminds certain people to recognize their place. Please refrain from using the Lin family name to deceive others or cause my son any further distress." Down in the front row, the principal's face practically split into a grin. The donation was secured. Around me, however, the atmosphere shifted. Scornful glances were cast my way, and the whispers grew louder, deliberately pitched so I could hear. "See? Daniel is the Lin heir. Ethan's the liar. I knew it. How could a loser like Ethan be related to the Lin Corporation? Serves him right for talking such crap. His own mother just shut him down in front of everyone." The principal, beaming, invited my mother onto the stage. With an air of regal condescension, she produced a platinum credit card, which a secretary promptly took to process the donation. 5 minutes passed. Then, the secretary returned, looking distinctly uncomfortable. He leaned in and whispered something urgently to the principal. The principal's smile vanished, replaced by a look of confusion, then awkwardness. His gaze flickered towards my mother, now tinged with something unreadable. He hesitated for a long moment before leaning into the microphone, his voice strained. "Mrs. Lin, there seems to be a problem. Your card, it was declined." "What?" My mother's eyebrows shot up, her voice rising sharply in disbelief. "Declined? That's impossible. My card? There must be something wrong with your machine." The secretary forced a strained smile. "Ma'am, we tried several machines. None of them worked. Perhaps, do you have another card you could use?" My mother's face flushed with displeasure. Before she could utter another indignant word, a deep, resonant voice cut through the stunned silence from the back of the auditorium. "Don't bother trying. I froze all her cards." At the sound of that voice, both my mother's and Daniel's faces instantly paled. My father, Harrison Lin, strode down the aisle from the rear entrance, his face a thunderous mask of controlled fury. My mother stammered, caught completely off guard. "Harrison? I thought you were still abroad." He gave a short, humorless laugh, his eyes like chips of ice. "Precisely. I was abroad. Giving you the perfect opportunity to stand up here and spout this utter nonsense, was I?" Gasps rippled through the audience. My mother, white as a sheet, instinctively grabbed his arm, attempting a placating smile. "Darling, there are so many people here. Can we discuss this at home?" "Yes, there are so many people here," he shot back, his voice dangerously low, pulling his arm free. "And in front of all of them. This is how you deny the existence of my son." Her pallor deepened. Even Daniel, standing near the stage, looked visibly guilty and apprehensive. Confused murmurs filled the auditorium. "What does he mean? Deny who? Is that the Harrison Lin?" My father didn't wait. He grabbed the microphone from the stunned principal and stepped forward, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Let me make this perfectly clear," he announced, his voice ringing with authority. "I have only one son. His name is Ethan Lin." He gestured towards me. "As for this young man, Daniel," he glanced dismissively towards the stage. "He is merely a scholarship student whom my wife chose to sponsor. Nothing more." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "I have no idea why my wife chose to say what she did today. But let me reiterate, so there is absolutely no confusion. I, Harrison Lin, have only one son, and that is Ethan." Then, he turned to the still flabbergasted principal, his expression softening slightly into a businesslike smile. "Mr. Principal, on behalf of Lin Corporation and my son, Ethan, I would be pleased to donate the funds for 2 new buildings for your esteemed institution. I trust this clarifies the Lin family's position and support." The auditorium erupted. Chaos reigned. Daniel, trapped on the stage, felt the hundreds of eyes now fixed on him. no longer with admiration or curiosity, but with scorn, pity, and outright disgust. His face turned crimson, his eyes burning with impotent rage as he stared daggers directly at me, as if I were solely responsible for his public humiliation. He conveniently forgot, of course, that none of this would have happened if he and my mother hadn't orchestrated their own elaborate scheme to discredit and destroy me in the first place. The ride home was suffocatingly silent. My mother and Daniel sat rigidly, their faces pale masks of dread, not daring to speak as they followed my father into the house. The moment the front door closed behind us, my father spun around and delivered a resounding slap across my mother's face. The sound echoed in the marble foyer. "What the hell was the meaning of that spectacle today, Sylvia?" he roared, his voice shaking with fury. My mother crumpled instantly, sinking to her knees on the cold floor, tears streaming down her face. "Ethan, he's always been so spoiled," she sobbed pitifully. "He's constantly picking on Daniel. I just felt so sorry for Daniel, all alone here. So I said, so you decided to publicly disown your own son and lie through your teeth?" My father cut her off, his voice laced with contempt. "If I hadn't shown up today, God knows how far you two would have gone to tear Ethan down. Do you take me for a complete fool, Sylvia?" My mother's lips trembled, words failing her. Daniel, quick to play his part, also dropped to his knees beside her, his voice laced with feigned fear. "Uncle Harrison, it was all my fault. Please don't blame Annie, Sylvia." My father's rage, already incandescent, seemed to intensify at Daniel's interruption. He looked ready to explode. Cutting through the tense standoff, I spoke calmly, my voice cool. "Still calling her auntie? Shouldn't it be mom?" Ignoring their stunned expressions, I reached into my school bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I walked over and handed it to my father. "Perhaps you should take a look at this." He snatched the paper, his eyes scanning the official letterhead. It was a DNA test result. It clearly stated a 99.9% probability of maternity between Sylvia Chun and Daniel Reyes. Biological mother and son. What is this?" my father whispered, his voice hoarse. His gaze flickered between the kneeling figure of Daniel and the sobbing woman who was his wife. He looked utterly poleaxed. Then, his fury returned, cold and sharp. He crumpled the report and threw it forcefully at my mother's face. "When the hell did you have another son?" They remained kneeling, silent, trembling. I continued the explanation, my voice devoid of emotion. "Daniel is indeed my mother's son, her firstborn, from before she married you." I laid out the sordid history I'd uncovered after my death. Daniel's father was Sylvia's first love. They were married briefly, but Sylvia, consumed by ambition and greed, saw my father's immense wealth as her ticket to a better life. Shortly after Daniel was born, she orchestrated an accidental encounter, ensuring she slept with my father. Soon after, she discovered she was pregnant with me. Confirming her pregnancy, she ruthlessly abandoned her first husband and young son, Daniel, presenting herself to my father as the carrying mother of his heir. My father, though never deeply in love with her, married her for the sake of his son, me. Her position as Mrs. Harrison Lynn was secured. Years passed. Then, a few years ago, Daniel reappeared in her life. He told her his father had tragically died in a car accident while struggling to earn money for Daniel's education. Seeing the now grown, intelligent, and seemingly virtuous Daniel, and perhaps romanticizing her past love, Sylvia was consumed by guilt. She resolved to make amends, using her influence and my father's money to bring Daniel into our home, into our lives. From there, the unholy alliance formed. They began their conspiracy, slowly poisoning my father with tampered medication, while simultaneously working to systematically destroy my reputation. Their goal was simple. Once my father and I were both dead, the entire Lynn fortune would fall into Sylvia's hands, which she undoubtedly intended to share with her true son, Daniel. In my previous life, I could never comprehend how my own mother could treat me with such callous cruelty. It was only after my death, piecing together the fragments, that I understood. To Sylvia, money was paramount. Daniel came second. My father and I, we were merely tools, obstacles to be removed on her path to wealth and securing a future for her favored child. She had never felt an ounce of genuine affection for either of us. As I finished speaking, a strange calm seemed to settle over my father. The explosive rage faded, replaced by a chilling stillness. He looked down at the two figures still trembling on the floor before him, took several deep, slow breaths, and his voice, when he finally spoke, was quiet but absolute. "Both of you, pack your things. I want you out of this house by tomorrow morning. I never want to see either of you again." Hearing the finality in his tone, Sylvia lunged forward, grabbing his legs, clinging desperately. Harrison, no. I was wrong. Please, I'm begging you, don't divorce me. Her voice rose into a hysterical wail. Give me another chance. Please. Daniel remained frozen beside her, not daring to move. But his eyes, when they darted towards me, burned with pure, unadulterated hatred. My father remained unmoved by her pleas. Slowly, Sylvia's sobs subsided, replaced by a desperate calculation. Harrison, she pleaded, her voice suddenly calmer, more rational. Even a divorce requires a 1-month cooling-off period by law. Let's just separate for a month. Please, just take a month to think about it. Even knowing her treachery, hearing those words filled me with a final, weary wave of disappointment. She wasn't asking for a cooling-off period. She was asking for time. Time for the poison she believed was still working its way through my father's system to finish the job. Time for him to die before the divorce could be finalized, leaving her a wealthy widow. Even now, exposed and defeated, her mind was solely focused on clinging to her gilded cage. Too bad for her. The medication had been swapped out the very first day I returned. Her desperate gamble was destined to fail. Daniel and Sylvia were gone the next day. Back at school, the change was immediate and brutal. When Daniel reappeared, stripped of his benefactor and his carefully constructed facade, the golden halo he once wore was gone. He became an instant pariah, the target of the same kind of relentless bullying he had once subtly encouraged others to inflict on me. One afternoon, I happened to walk past the boys' restroom and saw him cornered inside. A group of guys was roughing him up, shoving him around. When they saw me approaching, they actually paused, offering me surprisingly respectful nods and muttered greetings before turning back to their target. Daniel was curled on the dirty floor, gasping in pain, his body trembling. As I walked past the doorway without stopping, his eyes, filled with tears of pain and humiliation, flashed with a venomous, hateful glare directed solely at me. I saw it, but I kept walking. He could have escaped this. Transferring to another school would have been easy enough. But he couldn't let go of the prestige, the status associated with this elite institution. He'd rather endure this daily torment, clinging to the remnants of his shattered image, than step down to a lesser school. He had made his bed. Why should I feel any pity? A week later, surprisingly, Daniel contacted me again. A text message popped up on my phone. He wanted to apologize, he wrote. He suggested meeting at a specific location. My blood ran cold when I saw the address. It was the same hotel where he had orchestrated my downfall in the previous life. I stared at the phone screen for a long time, a tremor running through me despite my resolve. The memories flooded back, the disorientation, the crushing weight of false accusation, the suffocating despair of having no one believe you, the biting cold of that final night, lying alone on the park bench, fear and hopelessness consuming me as the world faded to black. Taking a deep, shuddering breath, I forced the memories back down. I steadied my hand and dialed the number the detective had given me when I first reported the impersonation. The next day, the headlines exploded, just as Daniel had planned, but with a twist he hadn't foreseen coming from me. Lynn Corporation heir accused of rape, screamed the tabloids and online news sites. Daniel Reyes, identifying himself publicly, posted a lengthy, detailed accusation on social media, claiming I had a history of predatory behavior, even alleging I frequently brought different girls home. Playing the brave whistleblower, he became an instant media darling. Following the clues Daniel deliberately planted, internet sleuths quickly rediscovered the risque livestream videos from the international platform. The clip featuring the accidental AI face swap, showing my face, was pushed to the top of every feed. It was exactly like the previous timeline, a perfectly orchestrated public execution. Instantly, my social media accounts were flooded with a tsunami of hate. Scumbag, societal parasite, rich trash. The comments poured in, vicious and unrelenting. According to Daniel's script, the next step was for the actress he'd hired, the woman from the hotel, to post supposedly incriminating bed photos online, providing the irrefutable proof to hammer the final nail into my coffin. This would permanently brand me, crucify me in the court of public opinion, and cast me into social hell. But this time, Daniel was in for another disappointment. 2 days passed. The expected bombshell photos never materialized. Instead, the police department issued a prominent, official statement. It detailed the ongoing investigation into identity theft and impersonation via online streaming, explicitly stating that the investigation had been initiated 3 months prior based on a report filed by Ethan Lynn himself. Furthermore, the statement confirmed that the woman involved In Daniel Reyes' recent public accusation had been located and apprehended at the hotel mentioned in his posts. She had already provided a full confession, admitting she had been hired by Daniel Reyes to falsely accuse Ethan Lin, detailing the drug drink and the entire setup. The release of this official police notification instantly reversed the tide of public opinion. It was like flipping a switch. The torrent of abuse in my comment sections abruptly ceased. The online mob, fickle and ferocious, immediately turned its wrath onto Daniel. His social media accounts became ground zero for the exact same type of vitriol that had been directed at me moments before. The language, the accusations, they were almost identical. I could only reflect, with a certain grim satisfaction, that viral fame truly is a double-edged sword. In my past life, Daniel had ridden the wave of my destruction to fame and fortune. Hailed as the bravest man for exposing me, he'd become a successful influencer, basking in the adoration of the masses who believed his lies. He never considered that the same blinding spotlight could just as easily incinerate him. Now, it was his turn to burn. Overwhelmed by the sheer volume of hate, Daniel, likely believing his VPN still offered anonymity and protection, made a fatal error. He started fighting back. Online, engaging directly with his attackers. In one particularly arrogant reply, he taunted, "You think you know everything? Catch me if you can, idiots." Since he asked so nicely, how could I refuse? Less than an hour later, I uploaded a new video to my own verified social media accounts. It was compiled from the weeks of footage captured by the hidden camera in Daniel's room. The video showed Daniel, alone in his room, bathed in the lurid pink and purple glow of his mood lights, writhing suggestively for his livestream audience. The audio captured him using a voice changer, pitching his voice into a cloyingly sweet, affected tone, cooing things like "purple kisses for my fans." The contrast between his public image as a righteous victim and the private reality of his calculated, lewd performances was devastatingly stark. The footage was humiliating, undeniable, and utterly damning. It practically screamed fraud. Simultaneously, the final pieces fell into place. The actress arrested at the hotel provided a detailed statement, confirming Daniel had coached her on the entire story, promising her a substantial sum of money for her part in framing me. Faced with overwhelming evidence, identity theft, fraud, conspiracy to defame, perjury, orchestrating a false accusation, Daniel Reyes was finally arrested. The charges were numerous and severe. After Daniel's arrest, Sylvia sought me out one last time. She found me at the house, where I was temporarily staying while helping my father sort things out. She threw herself onto the floor before me, kneeling, weeping hysterically. But when she looked up, her eyes weren't filled with sorrow or remorse. They blazed with raw, undiluted hatred, as if she were looking at her mortal enemy. "How could you be so cruel?" she shrieked, her voice ragged. "He's your brother, your own brother. How could you do this to him?" She lunged forward, grabbing at my clothes, her nails digging into the fabric like claws. "I always knew you were a thankless viper," she spat, tears mixing with fury. "Just like your father, only caring about money and yourselves. Daniel is your brother. Don't you understand? Are you only happy now that you've destroyed him, sent him to prison?" I looked down at her, my expression unmoved. "If he hadn't tried to destroy me first, I wouldn't have needed to fight back," I stated calmly. "Everything that's happened to him, Sylvia, he brought upon himself." "You lie," she screamed. "Daniel was always the good one, the kind one. It was you. You pushed him too far. This is all your fault." Sometimes, I mused, my voice quiet but cutting, "I genuinely wonder if you even remember that you're my biological mother." I held her frantic gaze. "When I was a child, bullied relentlessly, beaten until I bled, you didn't care. You dismissed it. You abandoned Daniel when he was barely 3 months old. You've demonstrated a capacity for profound coldness your entire life. So, who is this sudden display of fierce maternal love for, Sylvia? Who are you trying to convince?" Her face contorted into a mask of pure malice. She glared up at me, looking like she wanted to flay me alive. "You deserved every bit of it," she hissed. "Don't think I didn't know. You and your father, always looking down on me, judging me. Only Daniel ever truly cared about me. He's my real son." A chilling, triumphant sneer spread across her face, as if delivering a fatal blow. "I never considered you my son, not for a single day. I wish you and your father had both dropped dead years ago. If I had heard those words in my previous life, they would have shattered me, but I was already dead once." Her venom held no power over me now. I simply let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. Her eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What are you laughing at?" "I'm laughing at you, Sylvia," I replied, my voice still calm. Because you're a fool. You've spent your entire life chasing phantoms, never understanding what truly matters, or even what was real. I took out my phone again, pulling up one final video file. I knelt down slightly, holding the screen in front of her tear-streaked, hate-filled face. My little camera captured quite a few interesting things these past few months. The video played. It showed Daniel, alone in his room, talking animatedly on the phone. His face wore an expression of smug satisfaction, but the words coming out of his mouth were pure poison. Don't worry, Dad. It's all going according to plan. I'm firmly inside the Lin household now. Yeah, the stupid bitch actually thinks I see her as my mother. Can you believe it? After she abandoned us like trash all those years ago? As if I could ever forgive that. The slow-acting poison? Oh yeah, I made sure she gave a dose to her husband, Harrison. And guess what? I slipped another dose into her nightly warm milk. Yeah, she thinks I'm being such a dutiful, caring son, warming her milk every night. Little does she know, I just want her dead as soon as possible. Once they're all gone, Harrison, Sylvia, and that pathetic Ethan, the entire Lin fortune will be ours, Dad. Just ours. You've suffered for so many years. It's finally time for you to enjoy the good life you deserve. The video continued, filled with more incriminating details, but Sylvia had stopped watching. She was frozen, staring blankly at the screen, her face utterly devoid of expression, the hatred momentarily eclipsed by stunned disbelief. I pocketed my phone. Was it worth it, Sylvia? I asked quietly, my voice laced with cold irony. Destroying your comfortable life, your dream of being the wealthy Mrs. Lin, all for those two? I gestured towards the phone. You could have stayed Mrs. Harrison Lin, enjoying all the luxuries you craved. But the son you cherished, the man you thought loved you, they manipulated you, used you, planned to leave you with nothing, planned to kill you. Tell me, Sylvia, was siding with them truly worth it? No, she suddenly shrieked, scrambling back, her voice thin and reedy with desperation. No, it's impossible. He wouldn't. Daniel wouldn't lie to me like that. His father is dead. But her eyes darted around wildly, filled with dawning, horrifying doubt. Finding out if Daniel's father is really dead is simple enough, I offered, my tone deceptively helpful. He's been living quite comfortably in that secluded villa out in the western suburbs. Why don't you go pay him a visit? See for yourself. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. The fight seemed to drain out of her completely. Finally, she scrambled to her feet and stumbled out of the house, looking utterly broken, lost in a daze of betrayal and confusion. A few days later, the news broke. Reports surfaced of a violent incident at a suburban villa. Sylvia Chun had been arrested for the brutal murder of a man residing there, Daniel's supposedly deceased father. When they dragged her out of the villa, she was reportedly catatonic, covered in blood, her eyes vacant, her sanity clearly shattered. I watched the footage of her arrest on the evening news, a strange sense of detachment washing over me. No triumph, no pity, just a quiet finality. In a twisted way, she had finally achieved a family reunion of sorts, destined to spend the rest of her days incarcerated, just like the beloved son she had sacrificed everything for. I stood up, stretching slowly, feeling the tension release from my shoulders. The long, dark nightmare, the suffocating weight of the past, finally began to recede. My life, stolen and then returned, was finally, truly, restarting now.